Welcome everyone to a new video on E-quill. In this video, we'll talk about the poetical type, the sonnet. Let's begin with M.H Abrams' definition of what a sonnet is. A sonnet is a lyric poem consisting of a single stanza of 14 iambic pentameter lines linked by an intricate rhyme scheme. To see what a lyric is, it is a short poem which expresses feelings, thoughts, state of mind, or perceptions of the poet or the speaker. We have a detailed video on lyric in our channel. Now let's have a look at the main points that the definition tells us. So a sonnet is a lyric poem. It consists of a single stanza. It has 14 lines and the metrical pattern of the lines is iambic pentameter and the lines are linked by an intricate rhyme scheme as well. Let me give you a brief idea of what iambic pentameter is about. Let's take a word, delight. In that word, it consists of two syllables, D and light. The first one is unstressed and the second, light, is stressed. So iambic refers to such a combination of an unstressed and a stressed syllable. And when we have 10 such combinations, it is referred to as an iambic pentameter. So in a sonnet, there would be 14 lines and each line would have 10 such iambs in them. So a combination of unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed would go on. And they are short. The number of lines of a sonnet is fixed. And their rhyme scheme is also important. Let's have a detailed look at the rhyme scheme and structure of the different types of sonnets in the coming slides. Types of sonnets. The sonnets are mainly of three types: the Italian sonnet, the English sonnet, and the Spenserian sonnet. The major difference between these sonnets is of their structure, and as we have seen in the previous definition that the sonnets, they have an intricate means a complicated rhyme scheme. So the rhyme scheme of these sonnets differ from one another. We can see each of these types one after the other. First, the Italian sonnet. The Italian sonnet is otherwise called Petrarchan sonnet or classical sonnet. Here you have the image of the Italian poet Petrarch. He was a 14th century poet, and it was him, or it was he, who introduced the classical or the Italian sonnet form. Beginning with the structure of an Italian sonnet. It consists of an octave and a sestet. We have already seen in the definition that the total number of lines of a sonnet would be 14, so that is fixed. And the structure differs from one sonnet type to the other. So for the Italian or Petrarchan sonnet form, they would have an octave and a sestet. So an octave is a combination of 8 lines. So there would be 8 lines first, and then a sestet, which is a combination of 6 lines. and thus 8 plus 6 would be 14. We can see what the rhyme scheme of these lines are. The octave would generally be having the rhyme scheme or pattern of A, B, B, A, A, B, B, A, and the sestet would have C, D, E, C, D, E, or C, D, C, C, D, C. So this is a common rhyme scheme of Italian or Petrarchan sonnet form, but this form is not limited to this rhyme scheme alone, because many poets would be following some other rhyme scheme as well. But this was the commonly practiced rhyme scheme of this classical sonnet form. ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE, or CDC, CDC. Let's look at the other features of the Italian or Petrarchan form. This was introduced to the English literature by Sir Thomas Wyatt in the 16th century. It was introduced to literature as such by Petrarch, who was a 14th century poet, and to the English literature by Sir Thomas Wyatt. He first used it to talk about the hopes and pains of a male lover. Often his love wouldn't be reciprocated by the female lover, but later came other practitioners of the form, which include Milton or Wordsworth, Christina Rossetti, and D.G. Rossetti, who used it for many other themes as well. As we have seen, the structure of an Italian sonnet would be that of octave and a sestet, and usually in the octave, a problem or a situation would be stated or introduced to the readers in the first 8 lines, and then when we come to the next set of 6 lines or to the sestet, we can see that the problem which was introduced in the octave would get a resolution. So in the octave, we have an introduction to the problem or the situation, and then in the sestet, there would be a resolution to the problem or situation. So it is said that at the end of the octave or at the end of these 8 lines, there would be a caesura. Caesura means a pause. A clear-cut pause would be there at the end of these 8 lines. And as we move to the next 6 lines, there would be a turn of thought, that is volta. That turn of thought is referred to as volta. Caesura is the pause that we can see after the octave, and volta is the turn of thought that happens after the octave. But we should also keep it in mind that such a caesura or volta was not always there in all the Italian sonnet forms. For example, if we have a look at Milton's On His Blindness, we can see that there is no clear-cut division between the octave and the sestet. We'd be able to have a better understanding of the structure and rhyme scheme of an Italian sonnet by looking at an example. This poem is by John Milton, and it is When I Consider How My Light is Spent. So you can see that this sonnet has 14 lines. We can have a look at the first 8 lines. See here, you can see that this is the octave here, and a combination of 3 and 3, 6 lines, which is a sestet, which makes it an Italian sonnet. In the first 8 lines, a problem is introduced, and In the next 6 lines, we can see a resolution to the problem. We have already seen that the rhyme scheme of an Italian sonnet, or the commonly practiced rhyme scheme of an Italian sonnet, is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE, or CDC, CDC. Let's have a look at what happens here. When I consider how my light is spent, and the word that rhymes with spent is soul more bent. Ere half my days in this dark world and wide, which is death to hide. So here we have spent and bent, which has similar rhyming. So A, and wide and hide would be B, B. And then we have present and prevent. So when we have a look at these 4 words, spent, bent, present, and prevent, we can see how these words rhyme. And then moving to chide and denied. Wide, hide, chide, and denied rhymes. So ABBA, ABBA. And then we have the words need and speed, which will make them CC, best and rest. DD and state and wait would be EE. And thus we have the rhyme scheme of ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. Yeah, here it is CDE, CDE. I hope the rhyme scheme is now clear for you. We can move to the next type of sonnet, which is the English sonnet or the Shakespearean sonnet. The English or Shakespearean sonnet. This sonnet form was practiced by William Shakespeare quite a lot, and he has written 154 sonnets in total. This form was introduced to the English literature in the 16th century by Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey. To have a look at the structure of the English sonnet, it has 3 quatrains and a couplet. So a quatrain is a pair or a combination of 4 lines. A couplet, a combination of 2 lines. So there we have 3 quatrains and a couplet, which would make it 14 lines again. In the previous structure of the Italian sonnet, we have seen that there were an octave and a sestet, which would make the total number of lines 14, and here we have 3 quatrains and a couplet. And now to have a look at the rhyme scheme, the quatrains ABAB, CD, EF, and GG. First 4 lines, the next 4, and the last couplet. So this would be the rhyme scheme of the English sonnet. And now going to the details. As I have told earlier, it was introduced to the English literature by Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey, in the 16th century, and this form was practiced a lot by William Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets in total, which was published in the year 1609 or 1609. The earlier sonnets which were written by Shakespeare were dedicated to Mr. W.H., and the later sonnets were dedicated to a mysterious dark lady. In the Italian sonnet, we have seen that in the octave, a statement of the problem or incident would occur, and in the sestet, resolution to that problem would be there. Whereas in the Shakespearean sonnet, We could see that as we reach the couplet or reach towards the end of the sonnet, there would be a heightened emotion. That is, when the sonnet reaches the final couplet, that is a GG, it shows the poet's heightened emotions, or his or her emotions would be at the peak. We have the example of sonnet number 130 of William Shakespeare. My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun. As we have seen, the rhyme scheme is ABAB, CD, EF, and GG. Sun and done, A, red, head would be B, white, delight, cheeks, reeks, no, go, found, ground. And finally the couplet, rare and compare. And in total, the first quatrain would be ABAB, second quatrain CD, third EF, and the final couplet would have GG. Third major type of the sonnet is the Spenserian sonnet. The Spenserian sonnet is structurally very similar to the English sonnet, but what makes it different is the rhyme scheme. The Spenserian sonnet had a rhyme scheme that linked one quatrain to the other. If you have a look at the first quatrain, the rhyme scheme would be ABAB, and we can see that the sound B or the word would be, or the similar sounding words would be used in the next stanza so that the rhyme scheme would be linked. BB and C would be coming to the next stanza, CC. So this is how the Spenserian sonnet is different. They have a linked rhyme scheme, or each quatrain would be linked to the next by a continuing rhyme. So here the rhyme scheme would be ABAB, BC, CD, and EE. Looking at Edmund Spenser's Sonnet 54, we have stay, play, which makes them A, and then sits, wits. So this would be the first quatrain, and this would be the second quatrain. And here, let's see how the rhyme is linked from one quatrain to the other. Sits and wits, then fits and flits. Similarly, we can see how comedy and tragedy would be coming here, and I and cry. So this is how the Spenserian sonnet links one quatrain to the other, making the total rhyme scheme or overall rhyme scheme ABAB, BC, CD, and EE. We have seen the three major types of sonnets: the Italian sonnet, the Shakespearean sonnet, and the Spenserian sonnet. And now we can talk about the sonnet sequences or cycles. Many of the Elizabethan authors, they wrote sonnet sequences or cycles, which are a series of sonnets linked together. Most of the times, these sonnets would be having a similar theme, which could be love or religion, etc. We've already talked about Shakespeare's sonnets, the 154 sonnets that he has written, and then we can have a look at Sidney, who has written the sonnet sequence Astrophel and Stella, which was published in 1580, and then Spenser, who wrote the sonnet sequence Emeriti, which was published in 1595. So sonnet sequence is nothing but a series of sonnets which are linked together. And coming to the subjects of the sonnets, we have already discussed how Sir Thomas Wyatt used to write the poems or the sonnets, or talking about the hopes and pains of a male lover. So their love would be a theme. And if we look at Shakespeare, in most of his poems, love is a major theme. And there would also be other themes like aging, time, etc. The poets or sonneteers like John Donne, he used to write sonnets on religious themes. And if we have a look at Milton, he wrote or he used the sonnet form to talk about matters of much serious concerns, philosophical matters. So these are the major points about the sonnet form or the poetical type, the sonnet. We have seen the definition of the sonnet. We have seen the three different types of sonnets, which were the Italian, the English, and the Spenserian sonnet. We have seen that the Italian sonnet consisted of an octave and a sestet, and the rhyme scheme of it is ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE, or CDC, CDC. And the second type, the English or Shakespearean sonnet, it consisted of three quatrains and a concluding couplet. The rhyme scheme of that form would be AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, and GG. And to the last type, which is the Spenserian sonnet, they had a linking rhyme structure or continuing rhyme structure, which linked each quatrain to the other. And the rhyme scheme would be AB, AB, BC, BC, CD, CD, and EE. And another small detail that I'd like to add here is that the word sonnet comes from the Italian word sonetto, which means a little sound or strain. We have reached the end of our discussion on the poetical type, the sonnet. Hope it helped. Thank you.